say then you want to get out of your ULA. What are the tips that you can give us to certify out? What's the best practice? Mark S, if you could start this off.
Thanks, Dan. Well, the main tip, the first tip, start early. So in the Oracle agreements, there's a clause which says basically, well, you have to certify, if you want to get out of your ULA, you have to certify out within 30 days. Now, it doesn't say 30 days before your renewal date or 30 days after your renewal date, but it says 30 days. So people kind of look at that and take that as what to do. But there's nothing to stop you certifying out of your ULA basically 12 months early. So let's say you're into a 3-year ULA, you're 2 years into it, and you know you're going to finish your project on time because you're going to make it go live. Maybe you go live with the number of users you want and using the software you want, but you're going to cut down the scope a little bit so that you can make sure you deliver it on time. Then you could issue that ULA certification, 11, 12 months early. That way, you've given yourself plenty of time to get everything in order, to do the correct certification process, and Oracle know you're going to go out. If they're going to challenge it, it gives you time to end it. But best practice, start early, start 12 months in advance. And when we say be in control of the timeline, so if you're setting that date that ULA is going to finish, it's a hard date. Oracle's not going to move it. Or they may move it. I've seen them move it once or twice in the past if they're going to extend to another ULA. But they might move it only for their own reasons, generally, not for yours. So make sure that you're in control of that timeline. And make sure you have all the expertise and the processes and you follow those through. So on the second step there, the self-audit, identify all the line items on your Oracle agreements and map them onto your estate. So what people forget is that they have a number of licenses within the ULA, and then maybe they map it onto a system, and they forget that they've got these other licenses from an old system. The old system's not being used anymore. Well, those licenses, if they're still part of that ULA, you can map them onto a new system. These licenses that you've bought are not tied to any particular system, so you can use all those within your grant. But make sure you understand line by line where those systems are deployed, which products are where, and understand the types of usage. So understand exactly, be very careful for things like cloud, because Oracle issued a guidance about, I think, 2017, 2018, of which clouds they recognize. So if you put your software into Microsoft Azure or into Amazon Cloud, then Oracle do recognize that. But there are some nuances. There are some restrictions within the Amazon clouds, which mean you need to understand exactly the types of use that you're allowed to use your Oracle licenses for, and what Amazon products they map onto. So be very, very diligent about all that. And as we've said a number of times throughout this webinar, seek advice. I said earlier, I've been doing this for 20 years. If I was in your shoes as a customer with a ULA, I would get advice, because there are people out there that know and understand every single contract term and can be in your corner. So it's that kind of advice that you need. And there are things that Oracle have done recently around semantics around licensing terms. So there's a thing called the matching service level policy. And Oracle sales guys will tell customers that means that if you have any Oracle software, and I've heard this, that you can't cancel any of it. So let's say you've got a ULA, but let's say you've also got some other licenses. They'll say, no, you can't cancel anything. Well, that's obviously preposterous. I mean, because if you had a basket of Oracle software, that would mean that you could never stop paying Oracle for anything, even if you had multiple agreements. And of course you can. So what Oracle tend to do with that matching service level policy is try and bamboozle customers with it. What it actually means is, if you have Oracle products, let's say it's a database and some options like tuning pack or partitioning, then all of the software relating to that particular deployment on one system has to be the same service level policy. So for example, in that scenario, your Oracle database, your partitioning and tuning either have to be all in support with Oracle or all out of support with Oracle. That's what it means. But don't let Oracle bamboozle you with these terms and say, well, you can't do this, you can't do that. Make sure you get that advice and get somebody fighting your corner so that you can't get tricked or tripped up, or any kind of sales tactics that they might deploy. So it is a complicated process, but with the right help, it is going to follow the timeline, and you're going to be able to follow those 3 steps and guide yourself out. Mark, anything to add on this?
No, I think you covered it really well there, Mark. I mean, I'd just reiterate the start early piece. I've seen too many customers leave it too late to start considering considering getting out of a ULA, to the extent that, you know, they end up just rolling the ULA because that's the easiest thing to do, you know, on Oracle's terms. So it's an increased ULA going forward, and they're trapped in that for another 3 years. And then they've learned the lesson. So another 2.5 years down the track, or 2 years down the track, then they start to plan early and get out. But it's cost them another 3 years on the treadmill of the ULA. So start early is, you know, the biggest thing to take away from this slide completely. It's just, there's too many people made too many mistakes and just rolled again. And it's an expensive roll of the dice just to keep renewing at a ULA.
Thanks for that. And so you've covered the 3 kind of best practices to certify out of a ULA. I then wanted to cover the one last thing, which was, what is the main reason that you can see for leaving a ULA? What's, from your perspective, is the reason you should be considering this? Mark S, if you wouldn't mind.
Thanks, Dan. One massive reason to leave the ULA, obviously to save costs. In this pandemic world of where everybody's under pressure, everybody wants to save money. And as we said before, Oracle are in the business of maintaining their revenues. They need to declare to their shareholders they're making profits. They can't go around just kind of allowing you to pay nothing more and cut your bills massively. So you need to look elsewhere. And if you look to somebody like ourselves, Support Revolution, then you can use third-party support. It replaces everything that Oracle gives you currently. So you get all the kind of support services 24/7 and all the things that you need. But guess what? We're going to do it for a much lower price. We guarantee to save people at least 50%, and people save up to 90% in some cases. So it's a great way in this particular time to help your strategy to move forward, to save some money. And then what you can do is you've got out of that ULA prison. You're no longer going to have those arguments with Oracle every 3 years or whatever it is when your ULA rolls over, because you will be out of the ULA prison. And what can you do with those savings? Well, maybe you could reinvest them in more strategic things like AI, RPA, all the latest buzzwords of projects. But maybe you just bank those savings, because you know all the turbulence that we've had over the recent months, you're going to need to put some money back aside for the things that you want to do, or maybe just for a rainy day. So it's a great way of getting out of the ULA prison and freeing up some funds to be used on something that you'd much rather be spending your organization's money on. So, Mark, what do you think?
I agree completely with that. I mean, people who get out of ULAs, they want to have choice. And to me, I love have customers having choice, whatever that may be, choice of competitive products, or choice of where they get their support, or just choice, because you need choice and flexibility in this crazy world we're living in at the moment. Whether you just want to save money or not, you need to have choice anyway, whether we get back to the new normal or whatever it may be. You need choice. So to me, coming out of a ULA gives you choice. You get away from the restrictions of the ULA. Remember, it's not unlimited, it is restrictive. That's perhaps a better title for the licensing term, restrictive licensing agreement. But when you come out of the unlimited license agreement, you then have choice. You have choice, obviously, as you mentioned, about where you put your support and how much you pay for it. And in this day and age where a lot of people want to save money, or they want to fund other projects that have been put on ice or cancelled because there's no new money around, what a great way of potentially saving a vast chunk of support costs going forward, and using that money to fuel and fund other projects in your business. So it's a good thing to have choice. But remember, if you're in a ULA, you don't have that choice. You don't have third-party support as an option. You pay Oracle what the ULA contracts you to pay them, and that's it. And if you roll the ULA, you remain locked out of options and choice, such as third-party support gives you. So if you're in the mindset of we need to save money, if you're in the mindset of we need more flexibility, if they're in the mindset of doing what you want to do with your money, euros, pounds, dollars, whatever it is, then you need to come out of a ULA and give yourself some choices. And of course, that is, one massive reason to get out of the ULA, pandemic or not. Give yourself choices.